Hello there, very good evening and welcome to another edition of Face the Nation. Of course, we just completed 1 year since President Anukumara Dissanayake took office in Sri Lanka in an unprecedented turn of events. We had the first time at a presidential election that the counting of votes went into a second round, because unlike the usual two-party contest, this time it was a three-way or even maybe more than that. More candidates got a significant portion of the votes, but at the end of the day, President Anukumara Dissanayake won the election, and it's been a year since he has taken office. Subsequently, of course, an NPP supermajority is in power in Parliament. So the question remains, what has happened during this past year? It's always good to look back, ponder on our mistakes, see what we've done right, do those things better so that we can move forward better as a country. To discuss these matters and much more, of course, we've got with us, starting off with parliamentarian Lakmali Hemachandra from the National People's Power. Thank you very much, Lakmali, for joining us on the program, of course, despite quite a busy schedule with a lot of things to get done to set things right here in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, Lakmali, for joining us on our program. Also joining us is Kusum Wijetilleke from the Samagi Jana Balavegia. Thank you very much, Kusum, for always obliging on our invitation and making your appearance on Face the Nation. Representing the United National Party is Dr. Kithsiri Manchanayake. Thank you very much, Dr. Kithsiri Manchanayake, for accepting our invitation and coming on our programs. And of course, representing the Lanka Samasamaja Party and in extension the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna also, to a certain degree, we've got Attorney at Law Dimitra Abeysekara. Thank you very much, Dimitra, for coming on our program today. So starting things off, let's kick things off with Attorney at Law Dimitra Abeysekara. Dimitra, now, of course, you might have quite a few criticisms of this government, and of course that's fair. You're a member of the opposition, but as we look back during this 1 year and of course see what this government has done, what could have they done better, I'd like if you could, in your opening statement, also make it clear as to where the opposition stands right now, because we see there is a crisis of identity in the opposition, in the sense that we don't know who stands where. We've always had this culture in Sri Lanka where, you know, people cross over party lines and join other parties, but now we are at quite a significant point of time where one person is, you know, representing several political parties at the same time, attending closed-door meetings of that political party while having contested from another party or having entered parliament through another party. So, you know, while we look back, of course, on focusing on our topic, looking back at the 1 year under the presidency of Anukumara Dissanayake, could you also maybe clarify as to where the LSSP and by extension the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, your alliance, Podujana Alliance, where do you stand in the opposition? Your time starts now.
Thanks, Shalan. So I believe that the last 1 year has been critical for the opposition, both in Parliament as well as the members of the opposition, such as myself, that represent from the outside, for the simple reason that we're seeing now a unison in terms of the opposition getting together to voice their opinion. But I agree with you, there are still factions and individuals who don't seem to be very stable in understanding the policies of their parties, whether it be the government or the opposition or whatever party. And I think that's a political culture that we, as, you know, new entrants to politics, hope to see change in this country. But having said that, I would like to say I'm not going to be critical of the government, in the sense that the role of the opposition isn't to oppose everything that a government does, it is to critique it. So identifying that there are some developments that the government has brought in, but it's not to the extent that was promised to have been brought within 1 year. There is still a lack of direction in terms of policy development, let alone implementation. We're seeing a lot of aspects of the economy that are not being addressed. We are also seeing a lot of aspects of new economic issues that are arising. We're seeing several international banks now pulling out of Sri Lanka, and we're not seeing the government's stance on it. We don't really have access to any of that information. And then we are also seeing the fact that certain very key fundamental promises, such as the abolition of the executive presidency, is not being seen. We saw the appointment of a female highly qualified prime minister, but we're not seeing any development in terms of women empowerment. I think Dr. Manchanayake will be able to address that better. We're not seeing the levels of promises in terms of what was promised prior to the election and during the election. There were instances where certain political figures, including His Excellency the President, brought forward accusations that there are checks with names and dates, and we are up to date, we haven't even seen these checks. So I do believe that Sri Lanka needs to address all of this, and the government. But in terms of your question as to how the LSSP views this and as an extension of the SLPP, I believe that the recent UNP rally that was held under the patronage of former President Ranil Wickremesinghe, which we were not present at, which I must state, but having seen that, I believe that the fact that the opposition is uniting in bringing these matters to the forefront is fundamental. So while the opposition is uniting, the government has failed to address several key points in its manifesto, as well as failing to address several key points in terms of issues that are arising as we move forward in the timeline.
Now, Dimitra, you said that the opposition, you mentioned several, drawbacks in the 1 year period under the presidency of Andrekumara Dissanayake. You said abolition of the PTA, women empowerment, general direction as to development policy of this government, not even implementation. And then you ended it saying that the opposition is now uniting to push for these reforms. But when I listened to a lot of the speeches at the convention, that was not the key takeaway. I think even in what was it reported on the media, and I'm pretty sure our viewers would have seen that, that was not the key takeaway. The key takeaway was, I believe even there's a theme, Vyavasthapita Ekathipativadayata Erehiva, against a constitutional autocracy. So that was the key takeaway. So if you could just clarify, opposition is uniting to push on these grounds or on constitutional autocracy or the arrests?
So Shalin, what you have to understand is all these issues arise from constitutional autocracy and what we would like to call the autocracy that's a result of the executive presidency. The LSSP and the left with the Sri Lanka Freedom Party as well as the SLPP maintained through time, at least the LSSP maintained through and through the need for the abolition of the executive presidency, which in terms of the 72 constitution, which was drafted by Dr. N.M. Pereira. And in the year 2000, when it was first brought forward by President Kumaratunga in August of the year 2000, and it was tabled in Parliament. In fact, the then JVP members in Parliament opposed it. And then when a similar proposal was brought forward by incumbent Foreign Minister and then Member of Parliament, Honorable Wijetilleke, in the year 2018, which was a draft bill which was actually supposed to be the 18th Amendment to the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, which was brought as a private member's bill, which also didn't see the light of day. So for people who have understood that the presidency is, responsible, I mean, going back to your question on the autocracy, I believe everything trickles down from there, and that if we have an accountable system of governance, the problems and the key issues can be addressed. And with regard to the PT, I believe there was a cabinet meeting held on the 19th of February this year, the minutes of which were published, but a timeline as to the repeal of the PTA has not been put forward. And I mean, I think it's a good move, but having said that, the government's proposal to repeal this should also address how the certain necessary provisions of the PTA that prevent terrorism, because as we know, you're a lawyer, Shalan, the PTA has been used over time for matters outside of the prevention of terrorism. But we, as a government, as a sovereign nation, we need a framework to ensure the prevention of terrorism. So while the PTA as an act needs to be withdrawn, they've not addressed exactly how they would deal with the prevention of terrorism and counter-terrorism in Sri Lanka.
Dimitra, just one final point on the abolition of the executive presidency. You said that the constitutional autocracy stems from the executive presidency, but Dimitra, the LSSP also. I mean, I've had discussions with senior members of your party, and while I truly believe that you strongly believe that the executive presidency should be done away with, when the 20th Amendment to the Constitution was brought in, that substantially changed some of the more progressive measures that were brought in through the 19th Amendment. The LSSP, the SLPP all voted in favor of that amendment.
I have to correct you there, Shalan. We actually didn't have any representation in Parliament when the 20th Amendment was brought. Professor Tisavitarno, that was the one term where we were not represented.
Professor Tisavitarno?
Not when the 20th Amendment was brought.
Not when the 20th Amendment
was brought. That Parliament he was not there.
I distinctly remember, Dimitra.
I have to check on that, but from what I
recall, we'll come back to that point. But as far as remember, I had Professor Tisavitra on a show subsequent to that, and I posed this question to him, and he said, well, we had to go along with the broader coalition that we were in, and that's the reason why he voted for it. But of course, if you could clarify on that point also, that'll be great. But we'll get around to that. Thank you very much, Attorney at Law Dimitra Abeysekara, for that opening statement. We will now move to our representative from the United National Party, Dr. Kithsiri Manchanayake. Dr. Manchanayake, now UNP has really come to the fore as far as the opposition is concerned. It almost appears to be the main opposition in Parliament, despite not having a single seat from the UNP per se. The national, the NDF has the seats, but of course by extension. In any case, Dr. Manchanayake, now as far as this unification of the opposition is concerned, the UNP seems to be at the center of it. So I think it'll be quite apt for me to pose this question to you. What's the real reason behind this unification?
Shalin, thank you very much for the invitation for this program. Basically, this is not a new thing. If you get, Shalin, in the history, most of the time opposition is got united in various occasions. So the recent past, we'll say after 2000. So after 2000, even Janata Vimukti Perumana, JVP, got hold of his Chandrika to topple the Ranil's government. Then again, in 1995, so they everybody united to defeat Ranil Wickremesinghe. Right? So another instant, again JVP, UNP all got together in 2010 to defeat Mahinda Rajapaksa, but supported General Fonseca. In 2015, also everybody got together to defeat again Mahinda Rajapaksa to get Sirasa. So likewise again, I think again I don't know, JVP didn't get involved in 2015. 15 they got. 2015 they got involved.
They didn't open this
support. I mean, there are ways of doing it, direct support and indirect support. So they did indirect support, but for a Gotabaya, yes, they didn't do. They were so independent. We were in different sides, so that's why. So that is it's not a new thing for this country. So opposition, when a issue arising, so then we are join. So the general public think whether it is a that's a general public think this is a correct or this uniting is going to be a good thing or bad thing, right? So then only people follow that. So likewise now this government is only 1 year, but they have given series of promises, right? I think the important promises they haven't fulfilled. Some they have fulfilled, but they are doing it. But good thing is they are following the entire UNP or Ranil Wickremesinghe's IMF thing is practicing. Actually, that is the way forward. There's no any other alternative. So that's good. So then therefore, but there are so many things they promised during this election campaign, the stage, but still the important ones, the people people expected once, but they couldn't fulfill. So, but even the essential good prices and all those they couldn't fulfill, but still they are running the government, but people are not happy. If we can see the like voter base now, if you have another election or something, and you can understand how the ground situation is when you go to electorates, and also, I mean, they had a very good, swing, but that is now is getting neutral. I'm not telling it's coming towards opposition yet, but it's getting, is neutralize the things. But no, because again, now we have seen for the last couple of weeks about this, all the what you call ministers' income and their wealth, and those things also. I mean, the grassroots level of JVP has got shocked. They didn't expect their leaders to have so much of wealth and money in the banks and all. I'm not telling that anybody can earn money and anybody can do business, right? But what they have preached, but they haven't practiced. During the campaign, they said that we take a shirt from somebody else, we get the petrol, diesel for somebody else, and some person will give some bag of rice and vegetables. Those are the stories we have heard during the last 4-5 years. So it's not telling with the what they have done, you know. So that's another. So therefore, again, grassroots level of JVP or NPP are little unhappy with those issues also. But in future it can develop furthermore. So then again, that's why opposition, uniting opposition is, those are the impact. I mean, when you opposition also can get unite with, if there is some mistakes are happening or they are not doing anything, they are not delivering, but they have promises, even the grassroots level is bouncing back, or they are coming back to their homes. I mean, all the NPP parliamentary election as well as the presidential election, I think 90% of the voters are from what you call Portua people, or some part of UNP, part of probably SJB, right? But
when you say
now,
party, you mean they had voted in the past for one of the three parties?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So those are the people. So now sometimes some they are going to go back to their original places. So that's why I'm telling. So this government, I'm not going to criticize, because the one reason I'm not going to criticize is they are practicing Ranil Wickremesinghe's route. They are going in that route. So therefore, the country is not going to be into big trouble if you follow the Ranil's one. But if you're going to move out, or what they have mentioned during the campaign, right? We are not going to go with IMF, we are not going to do this, that. If they are going to practice that, yes, they are going to be in trouble. But so far, economy-wise, they are doing okay, but they have to deliver. Their promises they have to give. Therefore, uniting is, opposition uniting is very, very important at this stage, because then the government also is getting a signal. They have the majority, we know that. They have the executive power, they have the parliamentary majority, two-third majority, they can do whatever they want. But even the opposition is strong or uniting, so they also can't do what they want. So therefore, that's a good sign. The opposition is getting united. So that's not
Dr.
a new thing.
Manchanayake, just before we move, you said something very interesting. You said back in 2005, even the JVP joined together with the opposition to, topple the government and bring Chandrika. To top in 2010 with
2005 to defeat Ranil.
Yes, 2010 to defeat
yeah.
Ranil Wickremesinghe, then 2010 again, 2015 to defeat former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. So it seems as if this unification of the opposition was done with the intention purely of toppling the government and establishing a new government. But I think it was Chief Justice Sirasa who quite eloquently put it out recently, these old wise words that says you can't do the same thing that you've been doing in the past and expect a different result. So in your honest view, Dr. Manchanayake, you said that what's happening now is what happened then, opposition getting together to topple the government. But is that, party politics aside, is that good for the country?
No, I'm not telling we are going to unite. That's why I told you, very clearly I told you, opposition is getting united not to topple the government. If the government is going in the wrong direction, we have to correct them. That is one of the reasons, right? Toppling is their business. Government should know to be there without toppling, so they can do their part. That is not our business. But if government is not doing what they have promised, that if the government is doing a wrong thing, it's not doing the economy managing well, yes, we have to topple the government. But I'm not telling you, but now even just take in recent past, after 2000 to now 25 years, even JVP, even SLPP, even UNP, everybody got together in one time to trouble that out. Even 2010. I am not telling I am not going to criticize Mahinda Rajapaksa, but at that time there was a big opposition saying that Mahinda should go home. Or they have corrupted people, they have done this much of corruption, the Uganda story, this story, so many stories they have.
It was the UMP that said those stories, Dr.
Yeah, that's why UNP also did it, I am telling you. So that's 10%, 8%, 20%, those things we were.
So are you saying that those were lies?
No, we are not telling lies, right? But Uganda one is, I don't know that. That's I have to ask.
But then the others were correct.
Yeah,
the others were correct.
So what I'm not telling you, we have to practice the same thing. Previously, what they did, even the 2002, 2000, so they have given some money to LTT to not to vote for Tamil people, to not to vote. Those things I don't think is dirty politics, according to me. But if something is going to happen to the country, if the country's economy is not doing good, the country is going bad to us, so yes, then we have to topple the government. That's we are there. Okay. But if as long as country is doing good, they are doing good, if they are delivering the promises, people will think whether to topple or not. So as opposition, what we are doing is basically we have to, we are uniting it not to do any coup or anything, just to give a signal to government, do a good job. So we are there for you. If not, yeah.
And also according to the address of parliamentarian Wijetilleke at the convention, to prevent MPs from being taken to prison also.
I mean, no.
Dr. Manchanayake, that was just a side comment. We'll get into that.
No, I have to give my honest opinion.
It's quite short.
Right, honest opinion. If a MP has done anything wrong, yes. Now even now they've done a Vikramasinghe's issue. Actually, you shouldn't have done that, actually, right? You have taken something else, but do something, and at least to some extent they can justify it.
Dr. Manchanayake, we'll get into that. We'll get into that as the show progresses. We now move to Kusum Wijetilleke from the Hemachandra. Kusum, I'm not really used to this. Usually we've got such a lot of criticism against the government. Could you shed some light and maybe give us some pointers on what you think about looking back at 1 year under the presidency of Andrakumara Dissanayake? What could have been done better?
Thank you, Shalan. Thanks for having me. Thank you to the Newsfirst team, and thank you to the audience for joining us. I think if you're joining us on a Wednesday night at 10:15 p.m. For a political debate show, that means you probably care a little bit about the country's politics, the country's economics, and you want to know what we think about the last year, right? So I will depart from my colleagues to my left, and I'll be the one to criticize the government, right? Since you've come to me and you asked me that question, right? So I think just to reiterate to the audience something that's very important for them to understand. Sri Lanka is undergoing an extreme version of economic austerity. There is nobody that will say we are not. Now, I want the audience to understand very clearly that in the last 30 years, multiple countries have tried this form of austerity, including Sri Lanka in 2015, 2016, and every single time it's failed. And this is, I think, the part of the problem is that I think it's an English language program, Shalan, so I think it's fair to say there's a large portion of the audience will be middle class, right? We often say that no country, no society, no economy can develop without a strong, prosperous middle class. Why do we say that about the middle class? What's so special about the middle class? The middle class in any society is the segment of society that is aspirational. The aspirational segment of society are the people who will save 5, 10, 15, 20 years. They are the ones who will build a house for the next generation. They are the ones who will invest in a business. They are the ones who drive entrepreneurship. They are the ones who start employing people. Right? This is all coming from the middle class. Does that sound like the Sri Lankan middle class today? It's not. The fact of the matter is, in history, when you've had economic recessions, what generally happens is, and this is fact-based in the last 15, 20 years, you have a divergent economy. And that's happening right now. Currently, there are somewhere between 8 to 10 million people in Sri Lanka that are living at or just below the poverty line, and a poverty line of 16,900 rupees. At the same time, in the first 6 months of this year, the Sri Lankan Treasury has taken in $500 million of import duty from vehicles, right? The Range Rover agent said that they received 120 odd orders in their first consignment, and that's just the agent. Prior to that, private importers had brought down many dozens of Range Rovers. So in a context where the government is broke because of its debt, the poor are poorer than they've ever been. Poverty is at record levels. What do you think is going to happen? And if there are so many luxury vehicles coming in, what do you think is happening to the middle class? The middle class is shrinking. And unfortunately, I wish my friends on my left were correct, but if we continue down this road, by 2028, by 2029, when we have to make major capital and debt service repayments, we will find once again more pressure on the rupee. We will not have developed our exports. We will once again find the cost of living starting to shoot up. I'm not saying the country is going to collapse like it did in 2022. I think that took a very special set of circumstances and a very special set of decisions. But I think the country's economic future, the future of the middle class, is not going to improve. And it's not about the opposition uniting to topple the government. It's a fact that the government is unable to see beyond the IMF and to find solutions for the country's people. It's not about meeting IMF intended targets. I can assure you, even if we meet every single intended target of the IMF, our country is not going to develop. That's not how this thing works. I would ask anyone in the audience, we've had consecutive economic growth in Sri Lanka, GDP growth, since the post-war period, almost except for the 2022 period, right? Just go out of Colombo, go to even the main tourist areas. My father was born in Hikkadu, in Narigama. That's the main tourist area. I know this area. You go to that main tourist area, yes, that's developed. But go 1 kilometer north, south, west, east from that tourist center, and you just go and see, have the roads improved? Are there better schools? Are there better hospitals? Are people living better lives? Have their standards of living improved? Have the opportunities for the future of their children improved? We're talking 16 years since the post-war peace dividend was apparently there, right? We mentioned Mahinda Rajapaksa. Mahinda Rajapaksa defeated one of the most brutal terrorist organizations in history. But 6 years later, he couldn't get elected, right? And who beat him? Maithripala Sirisena, not some charismatic, young, fresh leader that everyone was dying for, right? The people who voted for Mahinda Rajapaksa 6 years before didn't vote for him. Why? Because the economy was in tatters. Because people's lives weren't improving and they could see it. That's going to happen again. It's going to keep happening unless we find our own solutions and stop depending on the IMF proposals. The IMF proposals only take us to debt sustainability. If debt sustainability is your be-all and end-all, you will not win the next election, whatever party that is. And I'm even trying to convince people in my own party that we have to, at some point, depart from the orthodoxy of the IMF and understand that just satisfying our creditors, satisfying bondholders, and satisfying a fiscal equation is not going to take us forward.
Thank you very much.
Before you move on to Lakmali, I just have to correct Kusum. There was no defense on the part of the government. I categorically stated that they have failed to address certain economic issues that are arising. You said my friends on the left, which is why, and the fact that we have international banks pulling out. So I just
all right, Dimitra. We'll get into that during the round for journalists. Finally, we move to parliamentarian Lakmali Hemachandra from the National People's Power. Lakmali, you heard a lot of what representatives of opposition political parties had to say about the 1 year under the presidency of Andhrakumara Dissanayake. What would your response be?
Thank you, Shalan and Shihan, for having me at Face the Nation. I think the past year for the government has been, I would say overall it's a positive, good year for us, right? Especially when we came into power in 2024 September, we were a new party in power. We had a new president, and then we only had 3 people in the parliament at that time, and we had 3 people's cabinet for about 2 months, and then we had then we gained 2/3 power in the parliament, right? So it was a fresh start for the country, and it was an entirely new experience for NPP as a political party also. It was a challenge for us, right? And I think for the first part of the year, we were trying to, it was a testing period, there were challenges, we had to, balance it out. We had to balance several political forces, political critiques. You always have doubts and suspicions when you have new people in power. But I think if you look at the responses that we are getting from people, especially in the last few months, last 2-3 months, I think people have come to understand that National People's Power is an honest political party. We are not here to, we don't have any other interest other than public spirit. Basically, we are here to govern with that public spirit. We are not here to gain personal benefits, and whatever we do is in that line. We are not, we don't have anything to gain other than what the country gains, right? So that is the only kind of thinking that we apply when we make decisions, and I think it has worked. I think people see the government as genuine, as honest, and as hardworking. Right, which is what we are. You can be ideologically right wing, left wing, you can be anything, right? But at your core, you have to be honest to what you do, which is what NPP is. So I think people can see that we are trying, that we are not lying to the people about what we want to do, and we are doing our best. And so when we came into power, the main thing, even during the campaign trail, one of the things that we strongly said was, before we change anything about this country, we have to change the political culture of the country, which had created enormous disparities between people who had power and people who didn't have power, basically, right? So all of these political parties who are getting together right now belong in the cluster who had power, whether you were in the government or whether you were in the opposition. By association, as you can see, they were in a little group of powerful people, right, who defend each other, whether you are in or out of power. And we are complete outsiders to that equation. And what we promised and what we wanted to do was to break that chain and close the gap between those who are in power and those who are not in power, the governed and the governors, right? So the rulers. And I think we have created egalitarian relations between the government and the people. We don't, I mean, I'm not saying that, we have completely toppled or completely, the state structure is still there. There are certain bureaucracies, certain disparities, of course it's there, but I think in terms of how we use power, it is much more egalitarian, and the political culture has drastically, I think it has completely changed within the last year. So people actually, if you look at the criticisms that people have of the government, those are more criticisms, those, the critics of the government want the government to do better, not because you want the government out of power, but because you feel like, NPP can do better. NPP, you want the government to stay, so you want them to, correct their mistakes and go on. That's the kind of criticism that we get. We do not get this frustration that everybody, I mean, I am a parliamentarian, I live quite close to, I live in Colombo, I do a public day, I travel around Colombo, I travel like a normal person, and people recognize me when I go around, and I have not received any kind of hostility, or I don't see this frustration. I'm not saying that Sri Lanka did not strike 25% poverty rate last year. It happened with the crisis, right? It happened definitely with the crisis, and it started with the pandemic. So this is not something that people started experiencing last year within the NPP reign. This is something that people have been experiencing for quite some time, and we do believe it has to change. Right, but changing that is also not something that will happen in a period of 1 year. We also have to be realistic about that. So what we tried to do was change what is really within our power, which is the political culture, which is how we react to people, which is how we use pub. We have changed that, right? And then the next thing that we wanted to do was, one of the main promises that we had was anti-corruption. And our political establishment was drenched in corruption. There were so many allegations, and as you can see, I mean, there are still so many allegations against prominent ministers, prominent state officers, higher ups and all of that. So we wanted to change that culture, and I think we managed to do that. You don't have allegations of corruption against NPP ministers, right? Nobody is going to say we traded off benefits for or political favors. That kind of criticism is non-existent, and you find international, diplomats, foreign like the countries, other countries, organizations who have started seeing Sri Lanka as a country that's going towards a non-corrupt governance, and we think that's an achievement for the NPP, because without NPP in power, that wouldn't have happened. And something that we were not really, counting on. I mean, not counting on. I don't think we were expecting to do it at this intensity, but this anti-drugs drive that we have. I have to say, this is not something that, if you asked me last year when we just came into power, what would be the main things that you want to do when you are in government, I wouldn't have thought that tackling organized crime and anti drugs and
at this scale
would have been the number one thing that we had to do. But this is something that we have to do, right? This is something that has taken over, and I mean, there's a lot of public support also for that, and it's not just because of the public support. I feel like there is, this is something that even within the police there are so many issues, and the government is trying our best to reform the police as well as we go along. So this is something that has to be tackled if you want to sort of bring rejuvenation into youth and our rural areas. I think especially with with tackling the organized crime, that has really gained a lot of good faith for the government during the past few months, especially in these rural areas, right? And so that is one major thing that we are trying to do. It's definitely challenging. That is not something that we can design and drive, because there are so many other actors also within that topic. But again, what we try to do is be honest and be hardworking and be genuine about what we do, and so far that has worked, right? And about the economy, I mean, Kusum doesn't have to tell the NPP that IMF program is not going to get us into development. This is something that we have been saying forever, right? This IMF, the current IMF program and the IMF kind of thinking doesn't really deliver development for third world economies. Everybody knows that. That's not something new, right? And the attachment, the program that we are in, IMF, Dr. Kithsiri said that this is Ranil Wickremesinghe's program. I think even Gotabaya Rajapaksa reached out to IMF when the crisis started, because that's the default response that any government would have when you're going through bankruptcy and when you're unable to pay back your debt. That is basically what the IMF is supposed to do, support governments when they are in financial stress. So that is what Gotabaya Rajapaksa did, and then Gotabaya Rajapaksa was ousted from power, and then Ranil Wickremesinghe was the president, and he did the negotiations and came into a program with the IMF. So I don't think IMF, working with IMF, Dr. N.M. Pereira also worked with IMF. So IMF is an international institution that works with left and right wing governments. They don't really make a differentiation between who is in government, right? And we do agree that this IMF program is heavy on austerity, as every IMF program is, right? It is heavy on austerity, and one of the things that we have done during the past year was to kind of smoothen that austerity, especially on the government sector, right? When we came into power, the government sector was starved. They didn't have the necessary recruitments. There was a salary freeze on the government sector, and there was no capital expenditure allocated for the government, the state sector, for development activity, and that was one of the first things that we changed about the government economic policies, state economic policy. We started state recruitment, we restarted state recruitments, we gave the government sector a salary hike, and then we also allocated 1.3 trillion for a capital expenditure because we wanted development activity to kick off, right? So that was our attempt to break austerity, and we also increased so many social benefits to poverty-stricken people, because not just because that wasn't just charity, that was economic empowerment for them, because that in turn becomes expenditure, and then it helps them to contribute to the economic, it helps them to consume, and they will start buying, and I think in spite of everything negative that the opposition has been saying for the last year, you can see the private credit is expanding. You can see that economy is coming back, and I'm not saying it has fully recovered. It's really hard for economy that went through bankruptcy to fully recover within a within a short period of time. But it has it has come alive again, and when we came into power, we had two choices. We do think structural changes have to be done in the economy, right? IMF program is enough for us to sort of find breathing space during the crisis, but that is definitely not a formula for development. So we have to come up with our own development program. We have to develop our own industrial forces and productive forces, and that is on the state, on the Sri Lankan state to do that, right? So, but before we do that, we also have to remember that this is a fragile economy, and IMF is one of the, and we have to, we have commitments to creditors. We have to make sure that we are in a position that we achieve the debt sustainability, as Kusum said, and unfortunately, IMF is also it can signal out so many things to international financial infrastructure, the institutions, right? Whether it's the investors, whether it's the creditors, whether it's people, who are looking at Sri Lanka, other countries. Once you come out of this is why NPP was very realistic about leaving the IMF program. We never said we would. Even when we were critiqued by our left-wing friends about sort of negotiating with the IMF or staying inside the IMF program, we were very realistic about it. We said we can't leave the IMF program because it will be a shock to the country again. It is a shock, not because staying in the program is entirely fascinating and it's a dream run. It's not. We understand that, but coming out of the program is an equal shock, right? And we are in a fragile economy, so we have to manage that. Which is why the government is determined not to follow through another IMF program and not to return to the commercial market in terms of credit, right? ISBs and so on. In 2028, we have to have our own path, an alternative route, which will allow us to enhance and develop our own productive forces. So that is on the government, and we are aware that the program is limiting that agenda. We are aware of that, but then you have to balance it out. You have to strike a balance, right? You can't leave the program and start doing our own development work, because unfortunately we also bankrupted in 2022, and we need to build investor confidence, we need to build creditor confidence. That's also, in a practical world, you need to do that. So this is just a pragmatic path that the government has chosen, not because, people who advocated for IMF, SJP advocated for IMF, UNP advocated for IMF, NPP never did advocate for IMF ever in our history, right? But we are also realistic about what we have to do right now, and we don't want to risk people's, whatever the stability that people have found. We don't want to bring a shock to that for our own ideological happiness, right? We are not going to do that. So that's one thing, and I think one of the challenges that we have, IMF is also, like as Kusum said, developing productive forces of the country is the main challenge that we have, to bring it back to development. We are stable now. We have sort of stabilized the economy, but there are no major shocks to the economy. You can see the tourism income increasing, you can see the export income increasing, revenue is increasing, everything has normalized now. but that doesn't mean we have entered into a full-blown development path. You know, that is also something that we need. So that is a challenge that we have, and we have to, the digital economy drive that we have is oriented towards that, but we also need to develop industrial policy, which the industry ministry is working on. And we also have to reform the government sector to suit that kind of decision making. And that is also a challenge that we have, and I think the next few years are going to be oriented towards that, as well as governance reforms that we want to do, such as, you know, everybody keeps talking about the constitution. We also want to start working on the constitution, but we can't start working on a constitution on fragile grounds. So I think we are moving uphill, we are moving and we are doing better every month, and we are, you know, we feel like we are doing a better job every month. So hopefully in the very near future we can start working on governance reforms as well.
Thank you very much, Parliamentarian Lakmali Hemachandra. We now open the floor for questions from our journalist today, Shihar Aniz. Shihar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shalan. I'll start with Lakmali. Lakmali, one of the main criticisms on your government is you are continuing Ranil Wickremesinghe's economic policies, right? Whereas you promised something else. It has been really good for the country for the last 1 year, because you have been with the IMF, continued the IMF without creating any instability in the country, in the economy. Now, if I ask you, what's your economic blueprint going forward? What would you say?
So, sure, thank you for the question. I don't think the IMF program in itself is not Ranil Wickremesinghe's economic program, right? Ranil Wickremesinghe's economic program was largely, privatization drive was one of Ranil Wickremesinghe's main economic agendas, right? If you look at what they were trying to do with SOEs and all. We are in favor of SOE restructurings. We have never hidden that. We have always said that we want to, you know, make SOEs efficient, productive and profit making. That's true, but we are not in favor of just selling them off or privatizing them without giving them a chance under a proper government, right? So, which is what we are trying to do right now. We have actually stopped the privatization drive that Ranil Wickremesinghe or UNP government, or the SLPP UNP government started 2 years ago. And large part of that is the electricity board, CEB, which was bound to be privatized within three months that we came into power. But then we maybe not entirely privatized, but it was open to, you know, the 53% of only 53% of CEB enterprises were supposed to be held within the government control, but we took control of 100% stakes of all CEB enterprises. And that was one of the reforms that we really pushed through for the last 1 year, because energy sector sovereignty and state control of energy is something that we really want to retain, right? We understand that CEB has their own problems and it has to be restructured, which is why we are pushing through that in spite of trade union opposition, some trade union opposition, but we don't believe in privatizing the energy sector entirely.
True.
Right?
Now,
so that's the change.
Yeah, stopping privatization and also the reform in the CEB are part of the you know, small part of, you know, your economic blueprint. Now, what are you going to say for instance, like pensioners? Now their return has reduced to single digit, right?
Yeah.
And then job creation in the last 1 year has been, I think, minimum, right? There has been no private sector expansion, right? Now only they are starting. And then in terms of investment, the major investors like India and China, their projects have been you know, stalled. They're not.
No, that's not true.
India, they're not doing as much as they did earlier.
No,
it's slowed down.
That's
right?
not true. That's not true, Shihar. During the past 1 year, we have attracted 1.1 billion USD investments into the BOI, and we have also attracted port city investment projects which are not BOI projects, right? Which is also more than 1 billion USD. And if you look at China,
you are referring to the signed projects, right? Not the realized projects.
No, these are realized. These are inflows to the government. Port city, of course, hasn't started the inflows yet, but BOI has, these are inflows into the
Sure, these have all
yeah.
been initiated not by the NPP, I must say.
No, I'm not-
The
No, I
inflow
mean
is not from-
projects are initiated by different governments.
Yeah.
Southern Expressway was not
Yeah.
initiated by Mahinda Rajapaksa either, if you look at it that way, right?
But it was implemented
No,
by
but
him.
please, it's
was
implementation.
From 1971, nothing
Let us
happened.
off
I mean, that's I
Yeah.
mean, what I want to say is that there is no slowdown of investments, right? Private investments are actually increasing into the country, and we have done so much to build on that investor confidence, because we believe that that is something that we read, because you need to have FDIs coming into the country. We cannot be a debt reliant country, and if you look at the projects, the Chinese projects and the Indian projects, all of them have resumed actually, right, apart from the Adani project, which of course had, we had differences about the pricing and all of that, but every other project that I think the previous governments had entered into, none of them had left.
Now Sinopec has been delayed,
Yeah,
right?
it's
has
not
been delayed.
delayed.
for a
There are
while.
certain negotiations that's going with Sinopec, and all to make sure that Sri Lanka gets the best deal out of everything. We are not going to rush into deals, which is what our governments had done previously, just rush into deals, regardless of how big the country is and how friendly they are with us. We don't want to rush into deals that jeopardizes our people's future, right? So none of these investments are actually pulling out. We are just we are negotiating with them to get the best deal for Sri Lanka. And Chinese projects have actually restarted, resumed,
So if
including
I-
the Central Expressway.
If I ask, how do you want Sri Lanka to be in the next 3 years? What would you say?
That's what I mean, the main change that I would want is development oriented government services, right, which we don't have right now. We have very bureaucratic secretarial type of government sector, which is not focused on delivering development for people, which has to change. And even if you, you don't have to go out of Colombo to look at poverty and failure of all of these policies. Even in Colombo, in the middle of Colombo, you can see pockets of poverty. You can see people living without sanitation, basic sanitation. You can see schools falling apart. So it's all of that is actually in the absence of development oriented government sector. We have a huge government sector, right? We have so many people working in the government sector, but the thinking is not development oriented. They don't have solution oriented thinking. So we need to change that. This is something that we have been trying to instill. And the second challenge we have is building up industrial process in the Sri Lanka, because regardless of UNP, NSJB, or I don't know this, a certain section of the political spectrum would say that during the past 40 years there has been development, but you don't find any development in the productive forces, right? We have factories here and there in the country. We don't have a huge industrial working force. Development is largely because of service-oriented economic development, and we need to have more economic integration with the labor forces, land, and all that has to be integrated into an industrial policy, which is essential for any country to develop. That is what NPP stands for, right? But like I said, there are certain limitations that we find within the IMF program that we can't fully implement all of those policies right now, because we don't have the we don't have the money in the treasury, we don't have the capital that we need to fully drive them, which is why we need private investments and FDIs and all of that. So which is why we are trying to create certain facilities, create certain infrastructure within the country in terms of investment policies and all of that. So if you look at the CPC, what we have been trying to do with the CPC, we called for EOIs on the CPC as well to develop the Petroleum Corporation. And
Are you referring to the Sapukaskanda
refinery? Yeah. And then we have also developed certain other projects which are not just projects that would take our resources out of the country, which will also bring in value addition and bring more investor attention to Sri Lanka, to have huge scale, large scale investor attraction. With CPC, we have actually got really good offers also, right? So I don't want to disclose the numbers and all of that, but it is positive. You can see that investor confidence in Sri Lanka is growing. So you have to, we have to balance it out. We have to balance it out because we have, policy making is not just technical, it's also political, right? So not every institution works in the same thinking that we work in. And we are a small country with a very fragile economy, so we have to be very pragmatic about what kind of decisions we are trying to make. So keeping that in our mind also, we are trying to move in a more industrial development direction.
So moving forward, I'd like to pose a question to again Dr. Manchanayake on this unity, the newfound unity in the opposition. Dr. Manchanayake, I find myself at odds as to, who stands where. So I'd like to, of course, get the view of all three of the gentlemen present here today on what their interpretation is about this unity. Now, we'll start with Dr. Manchanayake because Dr. Manchanayake is from the United National Party and it's at the UNP convention where we saw this unity on full display. Dr. Manchanayake, when you say unity in the opposition, what does that mean? Does that I'm not talking about we have gotten together to defeat constitutional autocracy. I'm not talking about the things that go over your head. Like really, what does it mean? We are going to contest the next election together. We are going to form an alliance. We are going to lead the people on a different path. We have certain agreements on policy on where this country should go. What does it really mean?
Shalin, the thing is, at convention, what we did was to get everybody, whoever who wants join the opposition, we asked them to come. So our main intention was not the collective intention is to have a takeoff. Now, traditional politics. Everybody knows that we also wanted to move away from traditional politics, right? Now, younger generation is looking for different direction. So, therefore, what we are trying to do is it's too early to tell whether we are going to contest the election together or divided or something like that. We are not talking about election now. We are not going to talk any whatever the election. We are going to talk just say we wanted to take the country into the correct direction. So therefore, some people can claim few things saying that because of these people are taking arresting this thing, we are coming together. Probably that motive people also may inside our unity, right? But our direct, Ranil Wickremesinghe and the leaders, what we want is to get this country into a correct. Because we can see slowly this administration is going towards bit of dictatorship like. So some people, the comments you have heard, some Ranjan Jalato, somebody, I don't know, can't remember recently, his comments, right? So we are willing to kill even 100,000 people to that sort of things, right? So that's a very bad direction because not NPP, some part of NPP is JVP. So they have that practice in 1889. So we are scared. So it can happen, can repeat it, right? Therefore, even now itself, we are trying to prevent those things. That sort of control or that sort of dictatorship or that sort of threatening, we don't want to this country. We had enough. I can remember 87, 89, 90, right? The roads were closed, even one sheet can close the entire city, shops were closed in our university time. We were in 6-7 years, we couldn't do our university studies. So we had that bad experience. So therefore, what our main thing is, when you come to a common opposition, there are different motive people are there. But I am trying to say is ours is, we are not going to topple the government, so let them do this. The people have given 5 years for them to do. After 5 years, yes, people will decide whether they are good or bad. So whoever who give the good policies, then they can come to power. But our main thing is what I have heard and I have seen with the majority of these people who got together saying that we'll put the country first. So if the country is going to a wrong direction or some other dictatorship or any other whatever you call, or because we are here and there we can hear a few things, you know, I mean not only this guy, there are another few guys have to. So that is a bad thing for the country, because we had that experience for 30 years ago, right? We don't want to repeat. So that's why elderly politicians are very scared on that. Probably young politicians, they have not experienced that. After 95 or 90 or 85 born people have not come across that experience. But little bit of elderly politicians had that experience of JVP, what they have during that period. So we don't want to come to that. That's our main thing. We wanted to have a clear cut country. We want to let them rule. That's why always we are, as UNP we say that we are not going to, we do a constructive criticism. We are not going to just below the belt criticism. We are not going to do at all, because they are, as Honorable Parliamentarian Lakmali mentioned, that the what you call IMF, not only this, they can buy Gotabaya Rajapaksa, all the government has taken. Yes, that is true. Whenever we are in crisis, IMF will come and help us. But in, I mean, not NPP, but JVP people sometimes say, no, we want to remove the plug. We don't want IMF. We don't want any other body. So we are going to do our own homegrown solutions.
But they didn't do that. But they didn't do that.
They didn't do that. The plug is still there. The multiplex. There are so many. I'm saying that's good. That's good. That's strange. But anyway, in UNP point of view, we are happy about it. But the country is in trouble. Right? Okay. What they have delivered, what they have mentioned, they are not doing it now. So they said we don't want IMF. So, but now they are saying that no, I mean not you. I'm not your colleagues, your previous colleagues, right? Have you heard about that plug, IMF plug?
Kusum just said that.
Right.
Explained it very well.
That's why I'm telling you. That is the problem. Because we have a bit of seeing the history of have seen and bad experience in the history of Lakmali. So that's why I'm telling, right? So I mean, probably you may have not seen, you may have joined recently in PP. So we know the history of this. So we don't want to happen and repeat what they have mentioned in previously. We know that. So now they are completely practicing a different thing. Fine, totally fine.
Dr. Vajra, you should be very happy about it, because they are continuing with.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. That's why we don't want to topple the government.
Continue with what Ranil Wickremesinghe, your leader Ranil Wickremesinghe wanted.
Yeah,
and reforms
exactly.
Minus privatization.
Yeah. Now, even one thing, now say Sri Lankan Airlines, what has happened recently, right? So, I mean, there are some institutions you have to privatize. There are some not. I agree with that, right? So now CEB also, now they are privatizing.
No.
They use a different way, right?
No, it's 100% permanent.
No, Honorable MP. So it is. Treasury is owned by 100% owned by the private companies, owned by the treasury. Any given time, treasury can give the share 100% sum. There's no clause anywhere mentioned saying that treasury has to keep 51%. Just go through a.
No, it's permanently 100%.
I mean, any given time can
give it. No. That section is very clear.
No, it's not clear. No. That's the problem. That's not clear. Right.
Permanently 100%.
If I may intervene, you all have categorically said that you all are not privatizing. But you all have not put forward what the alternative to privatization is, whether you all are entering into strategic partnerships. You all have mentioned.
No, any of these companies can enter into strategic partnerships with other private investors.
I'm not saying, see, that's the thing. You're saying exactly what can be done. We know, we are very well aware of what can be done. You all are highlighting the problem and what can be done. But no concrete proof or no concrete information has been put forward as to what you all are doing. You all saying we won't privatize. But what are you going to do if not privatization? What is the alternative to it? Right? Then with regard to the CPC tanks, you all have not disclosed where the investments are coming from or who the partners are for the development of those tanks.
We have called for interest.
Right? Then also this government share, I have to say, has been built on a platform of lies. Now,
please, Dimitra.
The learned MP just said we have no allegations of corruption, whatnot, and all that. One of your ministers is facing an allegation of corruption from the Commission to investigate bribery and corruption.
What is the allegation? During his time as a minister?
Not during his time as a minister, but he's still a minister. How come there is selective? How come there is
selective
allegation
of corruption?
How come there is selective enforcement of the law?
No, there is no selective
you brought the
enforcement
Proceeds
of
of Crime Act.
I will let you speak and then I will.
Yeah, you have brought the Proceeds of Crime Act in order to say, okay, right, we will bring money from here, we will bring money from there, but nothing has happened.
That's wrong, Dimitra, because that the proceeds of crime was
No.
actually brought under the previous government.
Yes, but it was
enacted by the
true. But what I'm saying is, with all those promises about bringing people to book and so on and so forth, we still don't know where the former speaker's certificates are. We have a minister in government who has charges. Nobody has addressed that issue, right? Then now that they have not addressed how there is going to be state income generation. Adding to what Kusum said, I'm no economic expert, but IMF is about repayment and debt restructuring. It's the government has not put forward anything in terms of income generation, right? Development must remain at least 5%, and what the government's policy and stance on that, we don't know. Now they're talking about a digital economy. What is a digital economy when we have less than 34% digital literacy? What is the government doing? Mahindodaya was established to ensure that children have access to that kind of resources. We go to good schools, like she said, she lives in Colombo, she has access to all these resources. You can't talk about a digital economy when there is less than 34% digital literacy. I mean, how can they say that? And then,
Dimitra, where do you get the figures?
Sorry?
The figures, 34%.
I'll forward.
No, because I just genuinely don't know, out of curiosity.
Kusum, your party, SJB, is the main opposition, right? Could you share some detail about what the SJB has done to keep the government in the right track in the last 1 year?
Thanks for the question. So in the last year, in this 6 months alone, we've brought up most of the main issues: the rising crime in the country, the concentrations of power. We brought up the conflicts of interest. We brought up the container issue. And I think more than anything, what the leader of the opposition has maintained in Parliament is that most of the key points in the manifesto, obviously in 1 year you can't accomplish, but you have to start setting the groundwork for that. And most of that just hasn't quite happened. Can I take a few minutes just to respond to a few things, if you don't mind? I know there's this conversation about the unity. I'll just take that, uniting the opposition part first. Look, with all due respect, I was a former UNP member. UNP voter, never a UNP member. I was a UNP supporter my entire life. I've actually probably voted for Ranil more than most other people because I'm from the Colombo district, right? But the fact of the matter is that the UNP has 1 seat in Parliament right now. It had 1 seat in Parliament 6 years ago, and it is in essence, it's a dying party, right? So I think there's a lot of media attention being given to the UNP, to Ranil Wickremesinghe, to the convention, to various alliances, but the fact of the matter is the leader of the SJB has clearly said there's a reason why the SJB exists. The SJB exists because of the failures of the UNP, because of the failures of the UNP leadership. Nothing has changed there. They recently reinstated members of the SJB that they had suspended. What is that meant to accomplish? Because there's a new party in.
So you don't want to join UNP, right?
I think the party is very clear that for there to be any kind of even electoral alliance at the national level, the UNP has to change its culture from within. So, and I think when we talk about, my colleague from the UNP talks about dictatorships, but he has nothing to say about the dictatorship within the UNP. A member of the UNP has been in power of the party since the 1990s, right? It's 30 years. So we have to be honest when we talk about a lack of governance internally is also a problem, right? When you talk about uniting with the opposition, if we talk about uniting with the SLPP, you're talking about uniting with one of the parties that contributed the most to the economic collapse. Not only that, many members of the SLPP are unwilling to even accept that their party did anything wrong. They'd rather blame COVID, blame the Easter attacks, blame Yahapalne, blame ISBs, blame the JVP with that 3% from 15 years ago, anything but themselves. So I think it's a little difficult for the SJB, for all the SJB's weaknesses, shortcomings and failings. The SJB still has 100 times more credibility than most of the other political parties in Parliament, with all due respect, and that can go very quickly in the next election. There's no doubt about that, but as things stand, that's how it is. I want to just quickly respond to some of the things that the Honourable Member of Parliament said. I also speak to a lot of people in and around the economy. I speak to daily wage workers, I speak to corporate citizens, I speak to engineers, I speak to bankers. Everybody knows the economy is not doing well. I've spoken to 5 economists in the last 1.5 months. They've all told me in private that there's a very high probability that Sri Lanka will need another restructuring by 2030, 2032. You just have to look at the projections, the IMF's own projections, right? In 2027, 2028, 40% or 45% of all government revenue will go towards debt servicing, right? We will have 60% of our total debt stock will be external debt. We will have 40% of our total external debt will be ISPs. These are not things that are sustainable. So that's just one quick point. On the issues, I mean, I accept what the Honourable Member of Parliament said regarding corruption. I think that this government, I think people understand that this is a genuine government. There are some very genuine people in there. But we have to also accept, right now, we saw just yesterday or day before, Mr. Handunetti's response to a question regarding the assets and liabilities declaration. He didn't even want the interviewer to ask the question. You know, we know that the RTI has also slowed down, even from the previous Wickremesinghe administration. There is not even a head of the commission until I'm not sure someone was appointed quite recently. There are concentrations of power. Now, we know that the government says that because of the IMF program, there are many restrictions, right? The IMF program also talks about governance. It also talked about concentrations of power. But the president still remains the Minister of Finance. He still remains the Defence Minister. In a context where Sri Lanka's economy had collapsed. Now, if that's not a concentration of power, I don't know what is. Right? The last time when I had this conversation with the Honourable Member of Parliament, she told me that, well, there are deputy ministers, a deputy finance minister who's very capable. That deputy finance minister, Mr. Dr. Harshit Surya Peramana, is now the Treasury Secretary. Right? And the Treasury Secretary is an extremely important position that should not be ever politicized, and it has to disastrous effects in Sri Lanka in the recent history. So I think we have to accept that even on the governance angle, there are shortcomings, and I don't think anyone can ignore that. She talked about she talked about smoothing austerity. The World Bank talked about a bloated state sector, this 2025 report, the fiscal responsibility report. They talked about a bloated state sector, and you heard my colleague just say they've raised government salaries, hired more people, right? Have they done any rationalization of the state sector? If the World Bank is saying that we have a bloated state sector, how are they hiring more people?
But then, Kusum, the next question is it that simple? I mean, when the World Bank comes and says you have a bloated state sector,
that's
the response
exactly
that you expect from the government is, okay, we'll fire a few?
No, actually, the World Bank, that same report says Sri Lanka's public sector employee spend, the salary bill, is very small compared to other countries.
Okay.
So you have to understand, even though we are spending too much because of misallocations, it's not that our government is not a high spender. Our government has never been a high spender, actually. Our government is a moderate spender because we spend a huge amount on debt interest. If you take social assistance, if you take education, if you take health, if you take infrastructure, our government is a low spender even by a peer group in South Asia that is extremely low anyway, amongst the lowest, right? She mentioned 1.3 trillion rupees of capital expenditure. Go and take a look at every single budget, every single government in the last 25 years has put forward for capital expenditure. The capital expenditure is like a little figure that you put to say this is what we're going to do. When push comes to shove, I think this budget has a 2.3 trillion rupee deficit. They can't plug 2.3 trillion rupees of a deficit. They will reduce the capital expenditure as they have done, as every government has done previously. They will have to reduce capital expenditure, and that's a problem.
That's not true,
right? And I'll just quickly continue. The FDIs, $1 billion of FDI. Okay, $500 million of this $1 billion is from the clock tower. The Big Ben clock tower in the port city, right? We don't know who those promoters are. It's another speculative 7-star luxury mixed development real estate project.
500 million of that 1 billion is not port city investments, are separate from the 1 billion. Yeah.
If you have 1 billion in the port city and 1 billion in the BOI, 500 million of the 1 billion in the port city is already a speculative real estate project. I haven't seen any high technology companies invest. I haven't seen any brand new. I just want to finish the point. I haven't seen any high technology organizations. None of the major manufacturers have.
None of them are going to come to Port City. That was not the purpose of building up Port City.
They haven't come to Sri Lanka.
Yeah,
right. If the investment climate has improved so much, why haven't we seen investments into tradable sectors? This is what happened during Mahinda Rajapaksa's time as well. The economy grew. The economy grew by 4.5% in the last quarter. I looked into the growth figures. Infrastructure. Industry, slight growth, tourism, construction. What does construction do? It drives imports. What does tourism do? It drives imports. When it comes to debt sustainability, we will see the results of all this, right? So the other question is, it's not about either or. It's not about IMF yes or IMF no. It's about negotiating a better deal. Now, this is not my words. This is the words of the main protagonists in the JVP IMF, in the JVP NPP government. They were saying that we can do a better deal. They were saying that we can do a better DSA. That was their words, not mine. So now we are hearing, we need to balance the IMF. So I just think
when you say better deal,
I want to respond to all of that.
when you say better deal with the IMF,
Yeah.
Kusum, what do you mean? Better deal? What did you expect?
First and foremost, Shalan, my honourable member of parliament herself mentioned this, right? She mentioned that we can't live on ISBs forever. But the very fact of this whole program is to take Sri Lanka back to the capital markets, right? That's the whole game. The whole game is to get our credit rating high enough so that we can go back to borrowing ISBs. So that in itself is a problem. Another problem, Sri Lanka's debt sustainability is judged by a random GDP figure, not on actual export income, right? We will have a nice GDP figure in 2029. Then what happens? Our macro-linked bonds will go into the second bucket or the third bucket. Then our debt sustainability is at risk because we have more debt payments to pay. Because that was one of the weaknesses that even, I remember Mr. Handunnetti himself, the Honourable Member of Parliament, mentioning this, that these macro-linked bonds are a mistake, that it was a debt bomb waiting to explode, right? Now all of that is kind of swept under the rug. So I'm just trying to point out, we can't do this game of saying, yeah, we have to take, you had a critique. The NPP had a critique of the current status in the country. That's what she mentioned. Especially, I really appreciate what the NPP talks about, how bridging the divide between ordinary people and the government. 100% that's something that has to happen, because any one of us know when we go into a government organization, even though we are the citizen, we are the ones who pay the taxes, we are the ones who are there for a service, it's like we are doing them a favor. And when it's MP, we know how people behave around MPs. Now, I understand this culture has improved, and I'm very happy for that. But that's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough in 2027, 2028, 2029. So,
Yeah, Lakmali, now,
Lakmali, you can respond.
yeah, Lakmali, now I want to ask a question as well. Now, the capital investment, 1.34 trillion rupees allocated for this year. Out of this, I think until mid this month, only 328 billion has been spent or allocated, right? It's less than 25%, and we are almost 9 months of this year is over. So how confident are you that you can spend
No,
this?
we are driving. This is why I disagree with Kusum. I agree that previously governments had numbers in the budget which said 1.3 trillion, 1.1 trillion. If you look at Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe's budget, it also had a high capital expenditure indicated, but eventually there was a de facto capital expenditure cut, right? But this government, this is not a deliberate cut that we are imposing on the government sector, right, on capital expenditure. But because our state infrastructure, our state machinery is so used to capital expenditure cuts, there is a certain, a system that actually delays everything. I mean, I don't want to get into that, but and also because of the election period that we had, unfortunately, which came right after the budget.
I think we have to speak about that. I think the procurement process at least takes something like 6 months, right?
It takes about 3 months.
3 months.
It takes about 3 months, but because the elections started right after the budget, there was a certain delay in that. But the government, especially the president, as the Minister of Finance, has been driving the capital expenditure for the past few months, having discussions with every ministry, following up on every ministry. We want to drive up the numbers. We don't want to cut the numbers. This is not a de facto capital expenditure cut. The government actually wants to drive up the numbers. We want to bring it as high as we can. We are targeting at least 60 to 70% by the end of this year, but we want to do more. We are keeping it at a realistic target, but we want to do more, and we are understanding this to be a barrier in the economic development. This is not something we implemented or we drive towards, which is also why we are hiring government. I have been saying this continuously. We have a bloated government service, which is true. World Bank can identify that, and I would also agree we have a bloated government service, but that doesn't mean that service is efficient and we have all the right people that needs to get the job done, right? The government service is bloated, especially at the lower level and the middle lower level. At the level that you need technical expertise and you actually need to drive these investments and projects, you don't have the number of people that we need, right? So we have been doing recruitments at the local government level, at the central government level also, to strengthen the government services, one, to do development projects, and second, to deliver better services in transport, in health, in education, in all of these areas that Kusum was talking about. And
But is there any strategy to kind of streamline this bloated government sector?
it would be a
in
shock.
future?
It would be, I mean,
In future, I'm asking.
no, we want to, even with the CEB, what we're trying to do is reallocate certain labor into productive functions, right? Which is something we want to, even with the government service, that is something that we are actually planning and trying to implement, but there will be some resistance within the government service also to do that, right? And it will be a shock to certain people. I mean, you have to understand the times that we are living in. We are living in times where there is 25% poverty, right? And we are coming out of an economic crisis, so we can't really, push people. It will be austerity if you drive government workers out of jobs. We can't do that, right? We have to, and this is not, I mean, it's very easy to say education doesn't have money, health doesn't have money, transport doesn't have money, true. But this is not a problem that we created within the last year. We took over a treasury which was bankrupt, right? Which had, all these interest payments were actually built into the treasury before we came in. These are not loans that, we are not servicing loans that we took. These are loans that we have been, so.
When you took the power, you knew that it
of
was.
Course, this is why we are saying.
Inbuilt, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. We knew what we were getting into, and we knew it was extremely tough position. We would have also had, we would have also had a, it would have been delightful for us also if we had a better economic position in the country, but unfortunately we don't have that. So it is very ideological to say, you can't just please creditors, you also have to. True, I agree. I mean, in my heart and heart, I do agree that you don't have to please creditors, let's just take care of the poor.
She
But
agrees with me.
no, I think we were way before you I have said
Let me
this,
come back
and
to
I
the
stick
same
with the
point.
position.
Let me come back to the same point, Lakmali. Now, you need to streamline this bloated government sector
True.
even in future, not now, right?
Yeah,
It's 1.6 million, government servant for a 22 million is huge,
Yeah.
right? It was something like 6 million in 2004, and then 2015 when Mahinda Rajapaksa left, it was 1.6 million, and we are still struggling to manage that. So what's the plan you have to kind of
so restructure the government service.
how?
So we have already appointed under the local government, the provincial government and local government ministry, under the state, the home ministry basically. We have appointed a committee to restructure, a parliamentary committee to look into restructuring the government services, and there are certain sessions that are going on within the parliament also. As we, I think
Ideally, how many people you want in the government sector?
that time I'm not familiar with the restructuring process of the government service, but there is the idea is to reallocate labor, reallocate some of these government workers into areas which can deliver services to people, right? And one of the projects that we are trying to do that with is the Praja Shakti project, which started, and many of the development officers and all of that will be reallocated to poverty alleviation and delivering poverty alleviation services and delivering building up development projects, small scale development projects within city level, local level, that kind of work. So we are trying to see how we can use this huge force that we have in a productive way and not get rid of any of the workers. But it is a challenge, and that is again not a challenge that we have created. I think governments who have been in power before us, including Mr. Sajid Premadasa, who's the leader of SJB, has contributed towards this trend, right? So we have not, though. We are not doing, in spite of all, I mean, as we speak, the opposition is supporting unemployed graduates protest and development officers protest and all of that, and any protest that would spring up against the government, especially on the state sector issues, where they would say every unemployed graduate has to be recruited without any, testing.
Well, that's the same thing JVP did when you were in the opposition.
No,
I didn't say anything.
No, Shihar. What I'm trying to say is this: you create a problem, and then when somebody is trying to solve it, then you come up with this kind of opposition. That's an entirely new law, I would say, right? You create a problem. This is the whole issue of state sector is not something that the state sector workers created. or something that the government in power has created. It is a policy, that is a deliberate policy that the previous governments have taken, right?
Then deflect the solution.
No, I mean, Shihar just said government service was 6 million when Mahinda Rajapaksa came into power. It was 0.6 million when Mahinda Rajapaksa came into power, 1.5 million when he left power. And who did those recruitments? Did NPP did these recruitments, right? I have people who are coming, I mean, I don't want to get into politics here, but if you look at recruitments done into, electricity board, health services, housing development board, all of this, right? So, who have done these recruitments? Not us. We didn't do these recruitments. And we are trying to clean it, we are trying to make it right. We are doing it in a very, sometimes in a, when we are trying to do look at what is happening around CEB, look at the opposition's reaction to it, right? Very well, they know very well that.
Not recruiting anyone.
No, we are not recruiting anyone. We are not recruiting anyone into CEB. We are
not the CEB in general, into the state sector.
We are recruiting people,
so then
but we are recruiting people on general tests.
I think Lakmali's argument is the fact that now the SLPP, the UNP created this issue in the job market.
No,
I deny that. I think Kusum want to say that.
Yes. The main most powerful constituent in the government is the Janata Vimukti Peranvi, which is the Marxist-Leninist party that represents the working people of Sri Lanka and has claimed to be the main representative of the working class of Sri Lanka.
Okay.
They were the ones that ran the unions for the last 25 30 years.
So now
they're talking about, I mean, there are parties as well, but the JP is the main party that runs the unions.
I'm not sure how, I don't know about, I don't know about SJP.
Unionization.
This is,
but that's
no, I won't respond to this. I won't respond to this because this is a general myth that people have about trade unions. I have been a trade union activist. I've been a trade union lawyer for a really long time.
Okay.
Trade unions were not run by Janata Vimukti Peramuna, especially state sector trade unions. Doesn't UNP have a trade union wing? Doesn't SLFP have a trade union wing? Sri Lanka Nidahas Sevaka Samiti Sangame, isn't it there? Janata Sevaka Sangame, JSS, isn't it there? Right? Those are the huge trade sector unions. Janata Vimukti Peramuna has really small unions.
Dependent on the.
Really independent.
But no, it's
who ran the railway union? Who ran the water board union?
Dimitra, do you dispute the fact that successive governments in Sri Lanka were responsible for bloating the public sector? Because I mean,
Shalan,
at the end of the
I fully agree with you on that. In fact, I think the learned member of parliament beautifully articulated it. The statistics. I mean, this is what the NPP and the JVP have been doing. I don't know if I'm confused or if I just lack the knowledge, but I feel like no solution has been given even by the learned member. She deflected beautifully and managed to say, even going to the CEB, oh yes, no, with the CEB we will reallocate. What are these reallocations? How does the reallocation happen? How do these things happen?
That has to be decided by the management of these companies. I can't decide on how the reallocation is happening. We are not going to politicize state services.
Yeah, so how do you not
the government policy
nobody's saying politicize the state entities. We're saying it's run by the government. You are saying you're saying you'll reallocate, but you're saying you're not going to
I would be very clear on this. Government policy is we do not want to fire any of the CEB employees, right? But how they have to be reallocated is a decision that professionals in the CEB has to do. That is not for the government to decide. That is not for me to decide.
But it's for the government to take initiative in terms of that.
Of course we have taken initiative.
So when you say take initiative, Dimitra, what do you mean? What do you want the government to do?
I agree that we are overstaffed. I mean,
no.
You can't lay off 1.5 million government servants.
I don't understand the question, Dimitra. Now you are saying that the government should take initiative in the restructuring of the CEB.
No, their words. They said they are reallocating and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Okay, these are great. It's been 1 year and they're still on the same.
No, we actually did pass the law on restructuring the CEB into 6 other companies, 6 separate companies, and by the end of October, all the workers have to be allocated into these 6 companies.
It's the
a very
unbundling.
simple-
It's the process of unbundling
It's
the
a process of
CEB, right? So
unbundling.
some of
Yeah.
it will be
So
privatized in the sense there will
No,
be
it's not
some
privatizing.
private operators will come in and sign agreements
that's
to.
not true.
yeah,
to-
that's not true.
I mean that's normal though.
That's
but that's
not
not
true.
that's not
That's
private.
not
No,
true.
but I don't
Private
think that's
operators-
categorically said that it will not be privatized. So I think we can hold her accountable to that if there is privatization. But I would take your word at it.
No,
I think the
see,
initial draft was to privatize.
53%, now it's
Exactly.
100%.
And then now it's
Well,
100%
No, no.
state owned.
No, but
Whether they can...
I'll take you at your word.
No, I mean CEB already had agreements with private investors. There are certain, subsidiaries under the CEB which are owned by private investors. So let's be, we are not saying that everything in CEB is going to be done only by CEB.
I'm not talking about just the CEB,
organizations which are going to be compartmentalized
Honorable
can
Parliamentarian
agree
has,
into SPVs with anybody, can agree into, any... That's just business operation. No, I mean seriously.
Dimitra,
I was at the co-op today with CEB. I think I am aware of what the CEB is doing.
Dimitra, let's talk about your umbrella party, SLPP, right? See, when we talk about this state sector, one of the main reason why it has been, you see a bloated state sector is your former leader, Mahinda Rajapaksa, right? There were a lot of, political recruitment, places like CPC, CEB, right? Now, for instance, Ports Authority. I remember former Energy Minister Wijetilleke, he told in a press conference, there were at that point there were 26,000 employees in CEB, whereas only 5,000 they needed. So 18,000 excess, right? So it's something like that. Not 18, sorry, 21,000. So you have a lot of baggage. This party has a lot of baggage. How are you going to shed that baggage and earn credibility from the people?
So yeah, that's a valid question. Thank you very much. And I do believe that this 21,000 increase in and the recruitment of the public sector in the CPC rather. CEB or the CPC?
CEB.
Okay, all right, whichever. There has been a culture, and the honourable member also very validly pointed it out, where the state sector jobs are created and it is handed out purely for the purposes of winning votes. In fact, when Honorable Nama Rajapaksa was Minister of Science and Technology, something he raised at one of the committees was there was a division under the Ministry of Science and Technology with I can't remember the exact cadre, but there was a huge cadre, and it was a research and development entity which which had been started prior to the year 2000, and jobs had just continued to be given. So there was a plan for reallocation there as well. In terms of how moving forward, I do believe that there needs to be a cultural change in this country, Shihar, and like the honourable member said, there is a political cultural change that has been brought about by the NPP. I will admit that, but we also need to bring about a promotion of entrepreneurship, right? And one of the biggest problems I have, and I think one of the biggest problems the opposition has, is that there is little to nothing done by the government to promote entrepreneurship in this country. I know we've come out of an economic crash, but we are coming out of it while the rest of the world is now in a direction where they're heading towards it. So I believe that development of entrepreneurship, and as Kusum rightfully said, the middle class, injecting knowledge, investment, skills into the middle class is very important, because if you see it, you have state sector employees who will earn an average of between 50,000 to 200,000, and they're happy holding on to that and getting their pension, because there is no motivation for them to risk an initiative which could probably generate even up to 2 million a month, because they are happy knowing, okay, I have this safety net of 200,000 rupees. So if there is a structure or a government policy which says this is, and that is something that the left can bring, because the socialism, at least the socialism we believe in, is equal access to resources. That doesn't necessarily mean everyone has access to the same resources. If you want to start, say for example, just hypothetically, if you want a bar to open a bar license and you meet the criteria, you get issued the license. If you want to start farming Say Kusum and I want farmland, we both get it. I suck as a farmer, he is great. But we both have access to the same resources. We get access to the correct amount of land, we get access to the correct amount of fertilizer. My failure would be on me. But Sri Lanka's culture has been designed in such a way where I wouldn't want to risk doing that and earning more money when I could just, you know, have 3 square meals, an average roof above my head, depend on the local politicians to give me a few incentives, because every single government will bring some new scheme or the other. Right, and adding to it, I have to just correct this. The honourable member said that President Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa, was not the one who built the Southern Highway. I have to say.
No, that's not what I said.
What did you say exactly? just
I said the project was not initiated.
Yeah, so Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. You can't say
was instrumental.
No, it was no. The first plan for this was Gramini Disanayaka.
But there you go. I mean, I didn't say that.
But here's the thing. You can't say Edison invented the light bulb and then say that the person that invented the LED light bulb didn't invent the LED light bulb.
I didn't say that. You said that.
It was conceptualized, but it has to be redeveloped. If we stuck to that, we'd have what? 2 lanes. That's it.
I don't know what I'm trying to
had that little bridge that was built by Gamini Disanayaka for the.
But I think what Lakmali is trying to say was that she said that in response to what you said about the projects being implemented by the NPP, so then it goes vice versa.
No. This was specifically with regard to the Southern Highway, because now even the Central Expressway, the NPP is, you know, trying to take the credit for.
We don't want to take credit for anything that
we have initiated it and so on and so forth. You all haven't initiated it. You all have just recommenced it. That's all.
So that's what we're saying.
Yeah, no, you said initiated. That's.
No, I didn't say initiated.
You didn't answer my question.
So yeah, moving forward, I would say.
My question was, how are you going to shed
yes,
baggages?
I understand. It would be with the deliberation and you know, what do you call it? The propounding of policies and solutions to the larger problems, and not merely deflecting or stating what the problem is. For example, we have a large state sector. Yes, that is the problem. And we can say, oh, you know, reallocation, so on and so forth. But if there is reallocation, we would say, okay, right, reallocation in this manner and form. And also promotion of entrepreneurship. I feel that is one of the key ways in which we can develop the youth in this country. A skill set, and we need to ensure that there isn't a reliance on government employment. Because to be very honest, it's not the most lucrative for any graduate unless and otherwise you're very committed. And it goes back to the 70s when, you know, people would sacrifice great private careers to work in the government because of pure drive, whereas now it's the security of that little wage. So I believe that it's ensuring that the youth knows they have access to things other than dependence on the government and its subsidies.
But then again, now Dimitra, we got into this initial conundrum of whether Professor Tisavitharan.
He was. I stand corrected. I mixed it up in 2015. Yes,
and he did vote. Yes. And he did vote
yes.
for the amendment that strengthened the powers of the executive
and the 18th
president.
Amendment.
Yeah, the 20th Amendment. Yes.
18th and the 20th.
18th and the 20th. Yes.
19th we were not in Parliament.
Yes.
You weren't in Parliament. Yes. So that's actually against you. I mean, the only one of the only pieces of legislation that cut down on the powers of the executive president. Unfortunately, Professor Tisavitharan couldn't, as a member of the LSSP, vote in favour of that. But see, that's where the problem is, Dimitra. Now, I mean, I truly believe you. I want to believe the younger members of the SLPP, the LSSP, and all of that. But the fact of the matter is, Dimitra, you can promise the sun and moon to me.
True.
But tomorrow, when push comes to shove, your leaders are not going to stand by you. They're not going to really deliver, because I mean, I'm judging parties by what has happened in the past, and what has happened in the past is many things have been said, but nothing really materializes at the end of the day. So, as much, Dimitra, as you point out that, you know, we have to, you know, drive entrepreneurship, you know, we have to get our policies straight, we have to get our public sector right, so on and so forth. Do you really think that that is possible with politicians who are not, or the political past, or the politicians in the past who are not really used to that? I mean, you'll always revert back to default setting. There is a certain point after which you pass. It's absolutely extremely hard to change your mind on anything. So do you think that's possible, Dimitra?
I do, Shalan. In fact, I agree with you that standing with a leadership that has a view opposing to yours may not be the easiest, which is why I'll go back to Honorable Nama Rajapaksa, whose family is credited to have strengthened the executive presidency and so on and so forth. But he, as a young member of parliament, also, when the government made this initiative, in his statement, he said that the SLPP will support the abolition of the executive presidency. And going back to it, he has also come forward and admitted a lot of faults that took place under the regimes of, his family members. So I think the youth in this country, and I could seriously say for myself, as well as a lot of the younger members in the LSSP as well as the SLPP, we stand by this. And if the leadership doesn't, we know that leaderships change. We know that nothing on the political platforms are forever. So we will stand by our principles, and moving forward, let's see.
Dr. Manchanayake, now I think again we see your leader, former President Ranil Wickremesinghe, is into kind of active politics. What's the plan?
I mean, he's always active, because his vocabulary.
That's not what they said in court, though, Dr. Manchanayake.
He's always right. Even if the opposition, in vocabulary, there's he said no retirement. Even I feel that, right? So I feel he's fit enough.
Do you think he's fit enough?
Yeah.
Easy waiting.
So you all put him to jail, but she's almost
Easy.
after
He went to the hospital for a weekend.
But Dr. Manchanayake, out of all, complete jokes aside, now it's been so long that this allegation has been leveled against the UNP, saying that it's a dictatorship. The SJB,
Uncle nephew party.
the SJB, so many members of the UNP left the SJB. Is there? I mean, there have been countless committees that were appointed to review the leadership of the UNP. I believe just a few years ago, I believe there was a news that was spreading across social media saying Ranil Wickremesinghe is resigning from UNP leadership, and there have been several instances like that. But he still continues to remain the leader of the UNP. Dr. Manchanayake, if I pose a question to you, looking forward, you're a member of the UNP. You're in the inner circles of the UNP. When is the earliest and the latest period where there will be a change in the UNP leadership, according to your,
Do you think that's needed at the moment? I don't feel, because all the other opposition parties is willing to.
Kusum is making all sorts of faces.
No, all the other parties, even SJB, the General Secretary,
Ranjit
Bandra said, we want to come and join with around Ranil Wickremesinghe. They openly saying the convention. So why do you want to change it? So let him give a leadership, and when the time comes, he will move out. But he is not going to live forever. He is not going to
Until he dies then.
So probably. Now you get China, what they are practicing. Now we China leadership until die, he is the president of the country. So there are some instances, right?
Yeah,
even Malaysia, Mahathir Mohamad, even in 90 he became the president. Because you have to know person to take the leadership. Now, just tell me, suggest a person.
But Dr. Manchanayake, is that the ideal? Is that the ideal outcome? I mean,
no, I'm not telling the ideal outcome. I'm not biased. I'm just true. But if we see, even my personally, I don't feel there's no success at the moment.
Whose fault is that?
Right? That I had to, if I don't want to comment, then I had to point out clearly today.
No, I'm saying
if there should be a leader,
he should have leadership,
there should be a leadership.
He should have had a succession.
Who's the succession?
No, I'm telling in even UNP, right? So even UNP, we have J.R. Jayawardena groomed some leaders, right? So Gamini, Zanak, Lalitha Tunapur, Ranil Wickremesinghe, likewise, right? Now, in the UNP, Ranil now normally a leadership, you can't be you have to be a good second leader. You have to be a good number two to become number one, right? That's how it's happened. President Ranil Singh Premadasa was one of the best number two we had in Sri Lanka. He didn't try to bypass J.R. at any cost. right? He was there. When the times comes, Premadasa took over. So that is the way of transition. I mean, leadership transfers are not by force and having rallies here and there. You can't get like this.
Kusum, who are the leaders?
No, I'm not.
No, Kusum, who are the leaders Sajid Premadasa grooming?
Grooming in the SJB?
Yes.
The SJB already has a very strong second tier of leadership. Dr. Harshad De Silva, Ran Vikramaratne, Kabir Hashim.
But are they being groomed by Sajid Premadasa?
I think many of them not only being groomed, some are already,
The next
coming
leadership.
forward. So I think we have had challenges even within the party. It's fair. It's a very fair thing. When you lose elections, there should be internal challenges. I said it on this channel, maybe not this program, that it might be a good time for the SJB to have a leadership contest. I said that at the time after the defeat of the election, and I think that's fine. I think it's important to have those things. If I can just have a quick little thing, I think...
Kusum, just before we go into that, now, Dr. Manchanayake was speaking about, things that were said at the UNP convention. It just popped in my head. I'd like to pose this question to Dimitra now. Since you said that, your leader, Namal Rajapaksa, is coming out and admitting to mistakes that were made by his fathers, his uncles, and members of his family. There was one very interesting statement that was made by none other than the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Attorney at Law Sagara Karyavasam, when he said that we made a big mistake. We, in the sense he was referring to all the members of the opposition parties that were gathered there, he said we made a big mistake. For several decades we pointed fingers at each other and accused each other of corruption without a single shred of evidence for the purpose of gaining power. Now this really, caught me by surprise, because I remember back in 2015, the mandate of the general public was given it was the government of good governance. That's the name that we gave the government. That is because they accused Mahinda Rajapaksa and the Sri Lanka Freedom Party at the time of massive corruption. Then in 2020, it was the central bank bond scam and all of that. So now when the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, who you say is admitting to past mistakes and reforming, comes on board and says that, I feel deceived. Like, how do you expect the general public to, Shiar was talking about, unloading a lot of this luggage. Is it that simple? Is it like, oops, sorry, we did this, we won't do it again? Is it that simple? Like, how can a person who was deceived so much, based on what the General Secretary said, if I've been deceived that much, I wouldn't go 10 feet close to the party for the next 50 years.
No, Shalan, I think your interpretation of that is a little off.
Wrong.
Not wrong, a little off. For the
I took the literal interpretation.
I know.
The purpose.
You took the literal interpretation with a little bit of bias there. Don't worry about it. I won't hold it against you, my friend. But
He literally said that.
No, but what
I was
hold on. So basically, no, I know he said that.
Yeah.
But what you have to understand is, in 2015, the government came making all sorts of accusations. Good governance came. Nothing was proven. Right.
Okay.
Then came the bond scam. That was proven. Right.
That now proved.
Well, to a certain extent.
Against whom? Because the election rested on Ranil Mahabenku Hora. That's what was said. So over and over again.
No, there's a separate report on that. I haven't fully analyzed it, and as a lawyer,
I'm not saying you said that.
There are individuals who have.
Dinesh Gunawardena, who ended up being the Prime Minister under Ranil Wickremesinghe, said Mahadaval Mahabanku Wanchava Mulim Anavarane Kare Mama. I think that was part of his slogan for the general election. So
Dinesh Bandru Gunawardena.
Sorry.
Yeah, Bandru Gunawardena.
That was Bandru Gunawardena, yes. But Dinesh Gunawardena also ran on a similar slogan. So no, my question is, Dimitra, I know I'm putting you in a really hard spot.
No,
I'm sorry, you hadn't said that.
No, I was in the process of answering it, right?
Yes.
And what you have to understand is, now this government also came in saying that there is money in Uganda and there is this and that, but has even one of these allegations been proven against the senior leadership of the SLPP?
I mean, the case
Has any allegation
No,
from
you're
2015?
deflecting. You accuse me.
No,
You're
not 10
deflecting.
years. No, I'm saying 10 years. Has it been proven, right?
That's not what Shalan asked.
No, what I'm saying is, no, your interpretation is it was said at large. Are there any allegations against the General Secretary? No, but when you're speaking in terms of a large congregation, you have to understand that statement you can't take in isolation, right? Which is why I'm not deflecting, I'm breaking it down since 2015 up to 2020,
Okay.
right? Up to 2025,
Okay.
right? Have any of these allegations been proven against the leadership, right?
No, sir. No. I'm not talking about the allegations against your leader, because he said all of us have been falsely pointing fingers at each other. So I mean, it's all open.
Can I just, at the point of making these allegations, did you really believe it? Because we really do still believe this. We are not saying that we made these allegations to take over power.
No, you all said it with so.
No, I mean, did you really believe these allegations? That's what I think. What
which
comes
allegations?
About corruption against
Ranil Wickremesinghe and the government of good governance.
No, so there was a.
According to your General Secretary,
they didn't.
He didn't believe.
No, you have to understand there is you can't take it in isolation.
He said it was a power move. That's what he said.
Yeah, so what about your power move? You all have a member of parliament who said that there's money overseas. Your president said he has a check with President Rajapaksa's name on it.
We are committed to investigating every corruption that happened within the country, and we make these allegations openly, and we stand by them. There's nothing.
You all still stand by the allegation that there's money in Uganda.
We are not deflecting from them.
But no.
What I want to know is, when you make these allegations, do you really mean them? Or are you just making power moves?
No,
that is what Mr. Sagar Kari was saying.
No, I think the SLPP has also come out and said that, if the members of the NPP also will have to be very careful, because when our government comes into power, we will come after you for all the corrupt activities that you've done. But then my question then, Dimitra, is now if Ranil Wickremesinghe and the government of good governance was accused of corruption, and your General Secretary is now saying, oops, sorry, we didn't have evidence, what we did was wrong, then why should we believe you when you say that you will come and prosecute the NPP for whatever corruption, if we actually see the NPP engaging in corruption, and we want them prosecuted for it? And you say, oh, we'll come and we'll prosecute the NPP for it. Why should
I didn't say we'll come and prosecute the NPP.
It's you have the right to know that. You are engaged in corruption.
No, exactly.
I mean completely.
What
I'm trying to say is, do you really believe these words that are coming out of your mouth is the problem here?
No. I would agree with you if a crime has been.
Not you, Dimitra, but I mean, what Mr. has said. Yeah.
No, so I think then that's a clarification you need to check in part. Yes. And
we have put Dimitra on spot.
No, but I'll stand by something Shal and I always say here. If a law has been broken, if a crime has been committed, it has to be prosecuted.
Lakmali, I want to ask this now.
This will be the final question.
Sure. Now, about the transparency and accountability. Now, these two words are repeatedly spoken, during the election campaign of NPP. Now, the other day, Minister Sunil Handunati, the way he spoke, it's being now questioned in social media as well as in the community about the transparency of NPP members. Do you have to say anything about it?
I mean, what is not transparent about it? There is a requirement in law that we declare our assets, and I think almost all, I'm not sure whether everybody has declared it, I haven't checked it, but I think Minister Handunati has definitely declared his assets. And there is an explanation to how that assets were derived. It is, it's, most of these are just land, that everybody, these are not really cash flows, right? I mean, if you look at the assets that are declared, but set it aside, these are openly declared assets. If there is any accusation of acquiring them fraudulently, you can make them. But to assume that people don't have assets, these are just prejudices and assumptions that people had against NPP members, right? That these were told to us when we first came into Parliament, that this is like a group of beggars. All of these prejudices, these were just prejudices. And then you turn around and find, okay, maybe they have certain assets under their name, and then you want them to explain how they got the assets. It's literally there how the assets are, some of them. So I don't understand what the huge issue about transparency is here, right? And I don't understand how how these, I mean, the way that NPP, I'm not saying, please question, we do not want anybody to stop questioning any government or any minister or anybody. That is not our policy, right? But there also has to be a certain fairness in the way journalists conduct themselves. So when you cannot just, because we answer, because we have set the bar higher in terms of accountability and, you know, in terms of political culture, you can always question us, we will answer you. But you cannot pretend, you cannot not question certain other ministers or certain other former ministers. There are former ministers who have not declared assets, right? And there are former governors who have not declared assets. Even now, even for the last year, none of the media outlets are raising questions about that. Why not that?
But Lakmali, just on that point, what questions the journalist should ask? Shouldn't that be the prerogative of the journalist?
I'm sure, but then, you know,
I mean, I understand the fact that you might think it's unfair. You might
there
think
is certainly unfairness in this.
But
there's unfairness in the sense, you know, you are asking questions from people who answer. Fine, go ahead and answer.
Because they're the ones who answer, Lakmali.
That's true. But then, you know, you also have to be, if you really want to go after the assets of politicians, Minister Handunetti is definitely not the one you should be going after. I don't think anybody disagrees with that, right? There are huge assets declared in these asset declarations as well.
I think on that very specific incident, Lakmali, I think the issue is the fact that once the journalist posed the question, Minister Handunetti, for whatever reasons, at the time that he felt maybe disappointed or he thought that, you
he
know,
might have felt personally attacked.
Might have felt personally attacked, but,
I mean,
but the
I would have, I mean, I'm not saying that he entirely handled the situation well, but that's a different, I mean, that's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm trying to say is the way that NPP is targeted for assets, when there are huge assets being declared in other political party, you know, members' asset declarations without any explanation, and some of them have not even handed over the asset declarations. Media should really focus there. It's okay, you can question us. We are, you know, we always answer. We are easy to target because, you know, it's fine. I mean, we are
that's the cost of changing the political
I mean, that's
culture.
true. We are
You
happy
have to
about
play by
it.
the rules by
we are
everybody else.
happy about the discussion that it has brought about. Even if it's against our own ministers and, you know, even if it's against us, it's okay, right? People have the right to question their politicians, and there is no need to, you know, shy away from that. But we also understand that we are being held to a higher standard than everybody else.
Which is
okay
great.
to be, which is okay.
Which is great. Which is what you want.
Which is great. Yeah, which is great.
Because now, Lakmali, everybody else will have to live up to that standard.
That's true. That's true. Even us. So that's fine. That's, I mean, I agree with that. But I just want to point out that there is unfairness in the way that, I mean, forget about the NPP or whoever, right? There is a certain responsibility on media to actually expose corruption and actually expose money laundering or whatever that is going on.
Media ethics.
So I don't know whether that has been something that media has been doing for the past few years. It is always, you know, clickbait, rage baiting. It's disappointing for me personally, and I don't know. So that's something that I want to put on record here as well.
well, I think we did quite the coverage on the central bank bond scam.
I'm not saying that you and Shihar and
no, I understand.
That certain media
but still, when you say media in general, we did quite the coverage on the central bank bond scam. But now, according to the General Secretary of Dimitra's party, now
right, Shalan, let me. I gathered my thoughts. Let me respond.
So let's move to the closing statements. Dimitra, you can take your chance. Your time starts now.
Shalan, I felt I got a more defensive hand here from the Honourable Member of Parliament than I did from you, moving to a point on media ethics. But I must say, like you said, the bond scam, there is a finding, there are arrest warrants out, right? The General Secretary's statement cannot be taken in isolation. What he has said, if you view it in terms of the shots that are fired by politicians, is the equivalent of me pointing a finger at Lakmali and saying she is party to or responsible for the atrocities of the JVP, or for that matter any other member of the NPP. That is the equivalent of how politicians will throw it. Nobody is denying the fact that the bond scam didn't happen, but the political leadership took it as to their advantage to throw mud at each other. Whenever something happens in government, in fact we do it. We take something that has happened in isolation in a government entity and we attack Lakmali with it. Sorry,
You still do
honorable
it?
member.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay
Definitely,
with
that
it.
is okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
But that is part and parcel of what politics is, and we hope that that will change. But you have to understand that in no way does it mean that these crimes and offences have not happened. It is merely that they have just, this political culture has used it to throw mud at the leadership from one side to the other. And hopefully, with the progress of time and the evolution of this new political culture, we'll see that fading away, including the statement that was given by a General Secretary who basically admitted to it in moving with the new political culture.
Thank you very much, Dimitra Abeysekara from the LSSP, also part of the SLPP. We now move our attention to Dr. Kithsiri Manchanayake from the United National Party for your closing statements. You have 2 minutes, Dr. Manchanayake, your time.
Right. So, thank you very much for this thing I have to say, because always both of you all throw the question to me about the unity of the opposition. So, I want to end it up with the unity. So, our unity is for, as I mentioned few times, for the betterment of the country. This is basically, we have to understand that not for topple the government or disturb the government, but if government is not going the correct direction, and as I told you earlier, government is some comments made by some government people is carrying. So we wanted to prevent all those things and give the people the confidence. So that's our main reason. And again, people are, all the opposition parties are willing to rally around Ranil Wickremesinghe. So that is obvious, we can't stop that. So even the SJB General Secretary and all the people say that, right, we rally around and we move forward. So that is the, I mean, it doesn't mean that he is going to be the next president or prime minister or anything, but just to unite the opposition. So we are going to rally around with this. So that is that, right? So therefore, we all do for the betterment of the country, and then I will request general public, keep eye on it. So have when the correct times comes in the, even this government, as I always tell that this government is in the direction of IMF, what we did with UNP. So therefore, we have no any intention to destroy that. So so anyway, our plans is so unite the party and to get a good country and let the NPP government to move forward. So we wanted this NPP government to rule the country for the next 5 years. We don't want to, because next 5 years they are moving forward, means they, I mean, so many mistakes they are going to do. Then it will be easy in 2032, any other, whoever not, to take the power and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kithsiri Manchanayake from the United National Party. We now move our attention to Kusum Wijetilleke from the SJB for your closing statement.
Thank you very much, Alan. It was a pleasure being with all of you today. I think we talked a little bit about shedding baggage, so I think it's just important to just reiterate. First of all, I don't see much popular movement coalescing around Mr. Wickremesinghe. I don't know where that's come from. I think of all the politicians that have lost credibility, perhaps Mr. Wickremesinghe is one of the people who've lost the most credibility in the last 5 to 6 years. Another factor, the matter is that I mean, we all understand the Aragalia, the 2022 collapse, these were seismic shifts in Sri Lanka's history, right? That was sort of a turning point in Sri Lanka's politics. But I want to make one thing that maybe people have missed. Before the crisis and after the crisis, there's only one politician that remained relatively popular with a broad segment of Sri Lanka's population. It wasn't Anurukumara Dissanayake, who didn't get even 100,000 votes prior to the crisis. It wasn't Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who didn't even contest, couldn't even stay in the country after the crisis. It wasn't Mr. Wickremesinghe, who got less than 10,000 votes in the election before the crisis and then got 2 million votes after the crisis. The only politician that got 5 million votes prior to the crisis and 4.5 million votes after the crisis was Sajat Premadasa. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is that there is some level of grassroots support for the SJB leadership. And as much as everyone wants to criticize the SJB and its leader, the fact of the matter is that the leadership of the party has outperformed the party at both presidential elections that happened, right? But when it comes, whether it's the SLPP, whether it's the NPP, whether it's the UNP, we all have to, we have to face our baggage, we have to face our past. And my advice to members of my party has also been, face your past. When you talk about the bond scam, understand what role you played. Did you walk out fast enough? Did you raise your voice when you should have? And understand the failures of that administration. If the SJB cannot accept and acknowledge the failures of the Yahapalani administration, then they are doomed to repeat those same mistakes going forward. So I think it's very important that the party learns from the failures of that administration. And I just want to finish with this final thought. I think because we have a member of the LSSP here, and we have a member of the NPP, which the main constituent is the JVP. It's a Marxist-Leninist party. I mean, I believe the LSSP is a Trotskyist party, but it might also still be a Marxist party as well. I'm not a Marxist scholar, but I read a little bit of Karl Marx. And one thing I have to say, Karl Marx had two very interesting concepts that I think apply to the NPP. One concept was called praxis versus rhetoric. So Marx stressed that the task is not only to interpret the world, but also to change it. And that empty rhetoric without transformation is essentially betrayal. The other concept I want to bring is subsumption under capital. The idea is that capital and the power of capital will always absorb and neutralize any resistance, turning even radical forces into managers of contradiction. Now, if you take these two concepts, praxis and subsumption, I think you can see elements of that within the NPP, where they've started to shed the Marxist, Leninist baggage that they used to have. My colleagues on my left might say that's a good thing. At least my colleague on my left might say that's a good thing. I would suggest to the NPP government that you should not lose track of the left populism and the progressive leftism that brought you to power. That's what the people wanted. The people expected you to improve their material conditions. And unfortunately, this government is now talking about economic indicators, GDP growth, sustainability. You know, we are losing touch with the material conditions of people. What are their futures going to look like? What are their children's futures going to look like? And I think unless they arrest this, letting go of this Marxist baggage that they've done to the detriment of their own governing, I think that the opposition will have a much better chance come 2029.
Thank you very much, Kusum Wijetilleke from the Samagi Janabala Wegya. We finally bore our attention to parliamentarian Lakmali Hemachandra from the National People's Power. Your time starts now.
Thank you, Shalan and Shihar, for having me here again. And I will close my remarks, I will close my statement with responding to Kusum. Marx also said that man creates their own history, man creates his own history under given circumstances, right? So we are restrained by our given circumstances, and we want to, this is what I said, we are very pragmatic, and people don't just want rosy dreams being, preached to them. They also want governments to be responsible and responsible towards their futures, which is also what the NPP government is doing, right? We are very popular. The government is, NPP is the most popular political party right now in the country, and President is the most popular political leader in the country right now, regardless of whether he's a president or not, right? So we have not lost touch with the masses. We have not lost touch with the popular rhetoric, right? We are very much with the people. And you can just see that every time the opposition cannot mobilize more than a few hundred people for anything, right? And we have faced several challenges over the past few months on the side of trade union actions, from the postal trade unions, from SLPP trade unions, and now with electricity trade unions. But we have managed to, without being repressive, without being extremely maybe condescending also towards the trade unions, we have managed to go through the reforms. We have managed to be very productive in pushing forward certain reforms and restructuring these institutions without harming them also, right? So I think there is really, I mean, if you really try to scare, if the opposition think that UNP, SJB and SLPP or whoever coming together is going to scare the government, it really doesn't. It is actually one of the most we would love to see that happening, because you would see how that will work out in election in the next 5 years, right? I don't think that's where the government is not scared of all of these parties uniting, because none of them have anything fresh to offer to the people, right? And it is very obvious that they are trying to cover up their own, they are covering their own faces. That's what they're doing. If you look at what these politicians are saying on this, I mean, Dimitra and Dr. Kithsiri here are saying really great things about why they want to unite. but that is not what is being said in this stage, right? They are very openly saying that they are coming after us, they are coming after politicians, so let's unite and get rid of them. You would say you don't want to topple the government, but that is not what your leadership has been saying for the past few months, right? They are very openly saying that NPP government has to be toppled, otherwise we will not have,
satyagrahas, no, recently?
Yes, he did.
Meetings.
He did 1,000 meetings.
Isn't that a fundamental of politics?
It's not for the top of the
No, I mean, come on.
Isn't that a
There was a discussion about
politics?
December
I think the chairman of
presidential.
your party made some.
Yes,
some
we are going to have
Yeah.
meeting, but
I
not
mean,
for
come
the-
on. I mean,
Next 5 years we are going to give you, don't worry.
no, I mean, it is not up to you. It is up to the people to give it to us, and
Yeah.
I think they
But,
have given
5
it
years
to
they
us.
are not going to
They
disturb
have
you.
given it to us. Every time there's an uprising in Nepal or in Philippines or Indonesia, the opposition is always talking about that in the parliament as if the people in this country have not treated them similarly, right? So I think we are not scared of people. We are very confident that people are with us, right? And any election that comes within the next 5 years, NPP is only going to win them, because to be very honest, we are not scared of the opposition. The only, we are not, right? But what we want to do is, we have serious constraints in our economy, we have serious constraints in our government sector, the government services, and those are the real challenges that the government has, right? And those are the structural reforms that we want to go ahead with. It takes, just because we have 2/3 of power, just because we are a new set of people in party, in government, we cannot bulldoze over everything. We believe in humility also. We believe that there has to be a certain humbleness in the way we approach any kind of reform. When we have to be tough, we have been tough, right? When we had to tackle corruption, when we had to tackle drugs, when we had to tackle certain regressive trade union action, we have been very tough on them without being repressive. This government, they say constitutional dictatorship to a government which has not even used tear gas for 1 year, right? Which government has done with 2/3 of power in the parliament, right? And there hasn't been any kind of mobilization against the government, serious mobilization against the government. They talk about this party convention and what happened with Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe's arrest. How many people turned up? Only the loyalists of the parties turned up, right? Masses are not moving against the government. What we see is, even before we try to defend the government, you can see people defending the government. If you look at social media, there are random people who are coming and defending the government, because people are actually standing with the government, and that is the real power that NPP has. Because people can see that we are honest and we are hardworking and we don't have any other agendas which the previous political parties in power had, right? We are not talking, look at what the conversation in the parliament, it's always about them, it's always about their privileges, it's always about what's happening to them, their political parties, which is not our concern, right? NPP is, we had a discussion about leadership earlier, building leadership, second tier leadership. NPP has really good leadership. We also have really good second tier leadership. Just today, I think MP Arjuna said that Nalini Jayatisse is going to be the next president. Earlier, it was Minister Vimal Ratnayake, right? So already people have confidence in our second tier. Already there are, young leaders who are being groomed by NPP. This is a platform for people to govern, nothing else, right? This is a platform for people to govern, for young people to join, for them to grow politically. So as much as I would like to, wish that Dimitra, really, do you really think that Namal Rajapaksa is going to be the next president of the country, and that he is the deserving one out of everybody, right?
That's a bit of a
no, yeah, that is true. But anyway, really, is there any space for leadership in any of these political parties? I don't think so, right? New leadership, fresh leadership. Is there anybody being really groomed or really developed into it? I don't think so. NPP has a very futuristic view. We are very positive about the country, and we have challenges, definitely external challenges, but we want to be very positive, and we want to believe that when the pull comes to a shove, that we are always making the right decision, and that's because we stand with the people.
Thank you very much, Parliamentarian Lakmali, Hemachandra. Once again, a big thank you to all our panelists today. Thank you very much, Shiharanis, for asking all the right questions. Thank you very much to our viewers out there for tuning in to another episode of Face the Nation. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.
TV1, TV for life.